In my last video, we spoke about capacity monitoring. And now let's jump into the alerts. Because the difference between no alerts and proper alerts, it's pretty much the same as a demo implementation and the enterprise ready implementation. So let's get started. First of all, let's quickly touch base on what is no alerts and proper alerts actually is. And it is pretty obvious, but I will speak about that anyway. So first of all, who will report those issues to you? Would it be your automated process in place that something goes wrong, or if the users will come knocking at your door and say that, well, their reports don't work as they expect them to? Secondly, because of how the alerts are handled in Fabric, it actually can spike the cost. Well, not necessarily the cost itself, but the performance of your Fabric workspace would definitely be degraded. And not only one workspace, but potentially if you share the workspace between, for example, reporting and the data ingestion, then both of those workspaces will be much slower and potentially just escalate even further and further and further. And the last but not least, you can track the data quality as well and have some indicators that your data is not good enough anymore really early in the stage, which is amazing to have. Now, as I said, there are three things that you would want to monitor. First of all, it would be the capacity usage and have some alerts if there would be a throttling or unhealthy state of your capacity already. Secondly, you would want to monitor for your actual data pipelines or ingestion notebooks failures. That one is the first that comes to mind, or maybe the second. And the last that might be overthought, but still it's important to have, is to monitor on your data quality. Now, how to do that? If you would ask ChatGPT to help you and design the alerting solution for Fabric, it will confidently say that, well, you can create the log analytic workspace, go to the capacity settings of your in the Azure portal, go to the diagnostic settings, send the logs from capacity into the log analytic workspace, and create all of those alerts. Unfortunately, and I checked it at least in three different tenants in three different organizations, that is not the case. And you wouldn't be able to send the logs from your capacity into the log analytic workspace and monitor it that way. Even more, it is suggesting to use that kind of monitoring for the failures of the data pipeline, and that is not available either. But what you can do actually, and that's what I'm suggesting you to do, is actually keep on using the Fabric UI. And in a Fabric, you can create the monitoring solution. So in order to do that, we go to the workspace settings of the Fabric, and we go to the monitoring set blade of it. It would be only the workspace level, so it can be enabled on different workspaces in a separate way. And what you can do as well, you can add an event house and create everything anew. But alternatively, you can try out the sample data or the sample setup from Microsoft, which is quite good. If you click on that try sample, it will show you the diagram that it will want to create. So basically, you will have the event stream. From the event stream, all of the events would be saved into the KQL database, which would be a monitoring database for you. And on the database, you can have your query set to investigate or check how the data look like. You can create a real-time dashboard with just to be able to put it on a screen, same as with the capacity monitoring, and see how your Fabric workspace going on. And the last but not least, you can have a report to display what are the statistics. And the last but not least, and basically the topic of this video, is we are going to create the monitoring activator that will be sending the alerts to you, to your mail, or to the Teams, or what's not. I already created it, and if you would create it by default with all of those checked in, it will create a new folder, the monitoring sample, and that's what I already have. So under the monitoring sample, you have those resources created, the activator, the event house, event stream, query set, report, and the dashboard. I mean, semantic model for the report. You can investigate them one by yourself, but what I wanted to show is a slightly alternative. Well, you can create an activator by yourself without all of that stuff. So in order to do that, you click on new item and create activator. And when it is created, it will happen soon. Yep, it will be named by the date when you create it. You can configure the activator just by itself, so you don't need the event stream, you don't need to have the KQL database or anything like that, and have a very basic alerting in place. And in order to do that, you can get the new data from the Fabric events. So if you will click on the Fabric events over here and create an activator based on the job events, and select only the last one job event type that you want to work on, the item job failed, and select the specific item that you want to monitor. In that case, it would be the data pipeline. It will basically create a activator with a data source of all of the failures of this specific pipeline in this specific workspace, and with this, you would be able to monitor only the failures of your data pipeline, which is halfway there. When the data source is created and connected to your activator, you will see something like that. And for me, I have that error that no data is available because my pipeline wasn't executed ever. But anyway, from this window, you can first of all rename your event to something more meaningful. So dev pipeline failures. And on top of that, you can create the actual alert rule. It is done using this button, and the new alert rule, by default, it just will have the alert as a suffix, which is probably fine in that case, but you can rename it to something more meaningful. What is more important, you can configure the definition of this alert, and the operation, it basically how often this needs to be fired. One of them is no presence of data, which is makes sense. If your pipeline doesn't run, then you want to be notified on that. But what I want to focus on is that on every failure, so because we configured the data source as failed events only, you can fire this on every value. So basically on every failure, someone would have to receive an email, and the email would be sent to this user, and then you can have a subject and a headline and a message. All of that is configurable, and on top of that, for some more complicated alerts, you can use their variables to show what's going on, but there would be a link in the mail to show specific alert that is happening, and this data source to investigate. When you start this, it will start to monitor the data source and send those emails. Or alternatively, you can connect and send those messages to Teams, for example, or have a webhook, which is the most flexible one, and you can send the data anywhere you want in your external systems to process. And you will have your alerts in place. There is one drawback to this approach. Basically, because it fail sends that alert on every failure, you wouldn't be able to just relax a little bit. And if you have a data pipeline that can fail sometime, but you don't really care about every single failure, and the pipeline is re-executed 5 minutes later anyway, and the data would be downloaded again, there would be no missing data, and one failure out of 10, you don't really care about this one, well, you will receive that alert, and it can lead to a alert fatigue, unfortunately. And you would need to solve that problem somehow separately. One more thing that is not so good about the activators is that it is not available as a Fabric CI/CD package Python library that we use, or that I recommended to use for the CI/CD. And the activator is not in that list of supported item types, unfortunately. What that does mean is that you would need to create those activators and alerts manually in your production workspaces or production workspace and configure it there by yourself. Uh, so click ops all the way, yay. On the other hand, maybe it kind of makes sense because you don't really need to have all of those alerts happening for your non-prod environments at the same time. But it is up to you to decide what do you want to have, and maybe it makes sense to create the activator in your non-prod environment once, send the messages to teams, and pretty much ignore them just to test that it is all working, and then create the real activator and real alerts in your production environment, and maybe even send all of the alerts not just to the email but to external systems that can send a pager notification to your people on call. With that being said, the last thing that I wanted to suggest is to have the data quality alerts as well. And the easiest way to do that is to create a separate pipeline that will monitor what kind of data do you have. If the last ingestion, for example, brought up any new data, or you can just have a completely separate pipeline that will compare the number of rows now versus the previous run, execute this pipeline every, I don't know, 1 hour, and if the number of rows will stay the same, you can manually fail the pipeline and receive an alert based on this pipeline, and that would mean that you haven't received any new data and you kind of expected to have a new data in that way. Well, that's just a suggestion, but you can have those monitoring in place. And once again, the activator, let me show you that again from the sample, not this one, but the activator can be connected to your real-time dashboard as well. And in the sample that I started the demo with, you can actually create an activator based on an alert, based on a reporting dashboard as a data source, which is good. And you can have much more flexibility in terms of what you can monitor and what kind of alerts will you receive. So remember, make those alerts good and don't stress about the fatigue, and just make systems as stable as possible.